Okay, so we all hold these fundamental values, right? Things like justice, empathy, respect.
Hmm.
And if you ask pretty much anyone, they'd say, yeah, I'm a moral person. We definitely see ourselves as the good guys.
We do. That's our default setting.
But then, you look around, history, even just everyday stuff, and you see so many examples of ordinary people. People who probably started out meaning well,
Right.
but they compromise those values, they cross lines, they just seem to lose their way morally.
It's the great human paradox, isn't it? And it's usually not about finding some, like, inherently evil monster.
No.
It's more this quiet, insidious thing, an internal drift. It's the small compromises, the little rationalizations that start deep down, way before they become obvious harm.
Exactly. And in our last deep dive, we got into self-deception, the lies we tell ourselves.
The everyday ones.
Today, we're taking the next step. We're looking at the forces, social, psychological, emotional life, that push that self-deception into, well, what we're calling moral blindness.
Yeah, our mission today is really to unpack the architecture of that blindness. How do otherwise good people, especially under pressure, somehow lose sight of the moral meaning of what they're doing, often with terrible consequences?
And we kind of have to start with that gut reaction we all have when we see something awful in the news, right? Those four really comforting but maybe dangerous words. I would never do that.
Oh, yeah. That phrase is like a psychological shield. It keeps the horror over there, not here, protects our self-image.
Right.
But honestly, decades of research pretty much dismantle that shield.
Yeah.
The really unsettling truth is that under the right conditions, or maybe the wrong conditions, almost anyone can be pushed to act against their own conscience. The situation often matters more than the person.
Which brings us straight to that classic, maybe controversial example, the Stanford prison experiment, the SBE Zimbardo, back in the 70s. For anyone who just knows the headline, they took, 24 ordinary, healthy college guys, screened them, made sure they were stable.
Yep, mentally sound.
And then randomly assigned them. You're a guard. You're a prisoner. Mock prison setup.
And the shocking thing, the thing we really need to focus on is the speed. How quickly people just fell into those roles.
The days, right?
Days. The students who were guards started, actively abusing the prisoners, humiliating them, psychological stuff. It got so bad they had to shut the whole experiment down early.
And I think the first reaction for many was, okay, who were the bad apples? Which guards were secretly authoritarian all along?
Exactly. But Zimbardo argued the opposite. He said the lesson wasn't about finding bad seeds. It was about the overwhelming power of a bad system.
Okay.
These students weren't chosen for sadism, but the system gave them total, unchecked power, and crucially kind of gave them implicit permission to dehumanize the other group.
So the situation itself handed them a script, almost, and they just read the lines.
Right.
That's deeply unsettling, that circumstances can just swamp your inherent goodness.
It's about how the environment can normalize things that shouldn't be normal. When you see others doing it, when nobody speaks up, the system itself suggests this behavior is okay, maybe even what's expected.
Huh?
That pressure to conform, to be a good guard in that twisted context, it just overrode their personal moral compasses.
Wow. Okay, that flows perfectly into the next big idea. Moving from, the chaos of a fake prison to the chilling efficiency of, bureaucracy. Hannah Arendt, the banality of evil.
Yes, Arendt.
Huh.
She coined that watching the trial of Adolf Eichmann in '61. He's one of the main guys organizing the logistics.
Yes.
The logistics of the Holocaust.
Right.
And what she saw just fundamentally shifted how we understood evil.
Because she wasn't seeing some raving, hate-filled monster, was she?
Not at all. She described him as disturbingly normal, ordinary, not particularly smart, not charismatic, not even boiling over with ideology. He was just a dutiful bureaucrat, polite even.
Doing his job.
His whole defense was basically functional obedience. He seemed utterly convinced he was just, following orders, doing his job.
And that's the core insight, isn't it? It reframes evil. It's not always dramatic, violent hatred. Sometimes it looks like routine, compliance, just following the rules.
Exactly. And the danger there isn't always active malice, which you can often see and confront. The real danger is, moral numbness.
Yeah.
Indifference.
I was looking away.
Looking away because it's easier.
Yeah.
Because challenging it is inconvenient. Or maybe it threatens your job, or it's just too upsetting to deal with.
And you see that playing out today, right? In corporations, politics, tech, places where keeping things running smoothly, efficiently, is often valued more than asking tough moral questions.
The system wants the gears to turn smoothly, don't rock the boat.
Yeah.
And that kind of indifference, that numbness, It's the perfect breeding ground for the mind to start actively justifying things it shouldn't. Which brings us to Albert Bandura, his work on moral disengagement.
Okay.
This is basically the mental toolkit we all use, consciously or not, to keep feeling good about ourselves even when we're doing things that clash with our own values.
So this explains how someone who's generally kind can be, I don't know, vicious online, or how a professional might ignore serious misconduct at work just to keep their job.
Precisely. They use rationalizations. And these aren't excuses that sound evil. They sound reasonable, logical even, socially acceptable. Like, oh, it was necessary for the greater good, or look, I didn't really have a choice. They're basically little lies we tell ourselves to weaken the link between what we do and how we feel about it, our conscience.
Right. So if we can spot these rationalizations, maybe we can defend against them. Can you give us a couple of Bandura's main mechanisms? How do we create that distance?
Okay, a big one is euphemistic language. This is incredibly powerful.
How so?
We don't say we lied. We say we engaged in strategic misrepresentation or, spin. We don't talk about killing civilians. We call it collateral damage.
It sanitizes it, takes the moral sting out.
Exactly. It makes it easier to swallow. Then there's diffusion of responsibility. Super common in big organizations.
The bystander effect kind of thing.
Sort of, yeah. Everyone thinks, well, my part was so small. Or someone higher up must have approved this. Or someone else will catch the ethical problem. When responsibility is spread so thin,
nobody feels responsible.
Right. Ultimately, no one is truly accountable. It's a huge driver of collective moral blindness.
Makes sense.
And maybe a third, really insidious one, is blaming the victim. Think about it. If you harm someone, that clashes with your self-image as a good person. That creates dissonance.
Okay.
So to ease that discomfort, it's mentally easier to decide the victim somehow brought it on themselves.
Yeah.
They were careless, they were provocative, they should have known better. It protects your self-image, but it's incredibly cruel. It doubles down on the harm.
Wow. Yeah, you can see how that works. So this moral disengagement, it's basically the instruction manual for that slippery slope of self-deception we talked about earlier.
Absolutely.
Every big moral collapse probably starts with one tiny internal lie, right? It's not really wrong, or it doesn't really matter, and that first little crack just gets wider and wider.
And that widening process is perfectly captured by Leon Festinger's theory. Cognitive dissonance.
Right, I've heard of this. It's that awful feeling you get.
That intense discomfort.
Yeah.
When your actions just fundamentally clash with your core beliefs, like, I believe I'm honest, but I just lied.
That tension feels bad, like physically uncomfortable. Your brain hates that contradiction.
It really does. And when you feel that dissonance, you basically have two ways out. One, change the behavior. Stop doing the wrong thing. That usually requires effort, maybe sacrifice, humility.
That's a hard path.
Often, yes. The other path, the one taken much more frequently, is change the belief.
Rewrite the story in your head.
Precisely. You warp the truth to fit the action. So if I believe cheating is wrong, but I cheat on my taxes, the easier fix isn't usually admitting it and paying up.
No.
It's changing the belief. Well, the government wastes money anyway. Or everyone fudges a little, you have to. You slowly adjust your values until the bad behavior feels, well, justified. It becomes part of your new, slightly distorted moral code.
Okay, so the individual mind is already prone to bending the truth to feel better. What happens when the organization around you actually helps you do that, encourages it even?
That's the crucial next level. We have to move beyond just individual psychology and look at institutions. Organizations, companies, governments, even families, sports teams. They often create environments that actively reward going along, staying silent, and systematically punish speaking up, dissent, rocking the boat.
Think about whistleblowers. They're rarely heroes in the moment, are they? They get shamed, isolated, fired. Loyalty to the team, to the boss, that's what gets rewarded, even if that loyalty is covering up something terrible.
Exactly. Look at the big institutional cover-ups. Chilling examples where collective silence protected awful behavior for years, sometimes decades. Like the Larry Nassar abuse scandal in USA Gymnastics.
Yeah, horrific.
Or think about state-sponsored doping in sports, like with Russia.
These weren't just one rogue individual, were they?
Not at all. These required dozens, maybe hundreds, of people, coaches, doctors, administrators, teammates. People who were likely perfectly moral in other parts of their lives, to actively look the other way, or to use those exact moral disengagement tricks we just talked about. It's for the good of the team. Everyone else is doing it. Don't question the system.
So the really sobering point here isn't just one bad apple spoiling the bunch. It's the danger of a whole cascade of good people doing nothing.
That's it. They choose loyalty, or maybe just personal convenience, job security, over moral courage. Because the fear of what the system will do to them if they speak out feels bigger, more immediate than their own internal moral conflict.
Okay, so if this potential for moral blindness is in all of us, if we're all vulnerable to these situational pressures,
Right.
how do we actually cultivate goodness? How do we stay clear-eyed?
Well, it starts with deep humility, I think, and just constant vigilance. It's not about being morally perfect. Nobody is. It's about staying relentlessly self-aware. Goodness is only really meaningful when it's conscious, when it's actively chosen over the easier path of just going along or looking away.
That self-awareness, then, is the defense against the slippery slope. It means challenging the easy answers, questioning the systems that feel comfortable, forcing yourself to be honest even when it feels costly.
Yeah.
Because the moment a good person maybe stops being reliably good is when they stop asking themselves the hard questions.
And we want to encourage you, listening right now, to make this kind of moral clarity an active practice, not just a theory. These next 3 questions aren't just for reflection. They're designed to interrupt that cycle of moral disengagement before it takes hold.
Okay, first one. This targets those euphemisms and rationalizations. Why am I really doing this? Dig past the surface justification. Are you protecting your image, your wallet, or your actual integrity?
Second, challenging that diffusion of responsibility and blind loyalty. Who benefits most from my silence? You need to recognize when your fear, your quiet complicity, is actually helping wrongdoing continue.
That's powerful. And the third, tackling cognitive dissonance head-on. What truth am I actively avoiding because facing it is inconvenient or painful? You have to be willing to sit with that discomfort, confront the truth, before your mind automatically rewrites it for you.
Look, our goal here isn't to make you feel ashamed or flawed. It's really to awaken you to the powerful reality of situational influence.
Yeah.
Once you understand the psychology, the pull of pressure, the role of fear, how systems shape behavior, you actually gain power. Power to interrupt these processes in yourself and maybe even in the groups you're part of.
Because morality isn't some fixed state, is it? It's more like a daily decision, choosing clarity over comfort, choosing to protect your integrity even if it costs your reputation sometimes.
Exactly. And maybe we can leave you with this really potent thought from Carl Jung. It sums up this whole journey from unconscious drift to conscious choice. He said, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious."
Making the darkness conscious. Wow. So being truly good isn't about pretending you're perfect. It's about acknowledging your own capacity for darkness, for getting swept up, seeing that slippery slope clearly, and still choosing the harder path of honesty and courage. Because maybe the most dangerous moment of all, the point where moral blindness is almost guaranteed, is that moment we defensively insist, oh, I could never do that.
That's when you stop looking. That's when the risk is highest.